If I'm honest with people and I'm roasting out of Miami, am I losing some panache?
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem, is making that decision.
Yeah. And that could be a make or break too, with an investment like that. And then people don't want it because the story's got a hole in it now, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And I got to be the guy. What in the hell is panache?
We don't follow the map. We don't wait for permission. And we sure as hell don't slow down. This is Beach Weekend Unfiltered, the raw story behind building businesses, chasing opportunity, and taking risks most people won't touch. From the Gulf Coast, Key West, Bahamas, from marinas to million-dollar deals, this is entrepreneurship at full throttle. The wins, the failures, the chaos, the grind. No filter, no safety net. So buckle up. It's about to get wild.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We are here in Key West at Baby's Coffee. In fact, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, we want to make sure that you have your notifications on. And also, go check out our YouTube channel and watch this podcast here. You'll be able to see exactly where we're at on location today. We're here at this incredible coffee shop. It's iconic for Key West. And we've got Joe with us. And Jamie, Joe, you guys have been friends for a long time. Jamie, maybe give a little intro and a little backstory here.
Yeah, so we got Joe Braccelli. Did I get it right?
Close enough. Broccoli.
Yeah, we got Joe here. Met him quite a bit ago in Destin, Florida. And I think we first met on, was it Craigslist?
Craigslist, 2012, behind the Walmart in Fort Walton.
Yeah, so, using online platforms, not only for business, but for some personal relationships has always been good. But we're down here in Key West, and we both started, he started down in Orlando. And he and I met up in the Panhandle. He was the broker at Sandestin Real Estate, and just crossed paths and had a good time talking about business, and kind of almost got together doing a vacation rental out in 30A. And both of us stayed in the real estate path and vacation down in Key West. And now we ended up, fast forward, 10 or 15 years later. We're
That's
both
2012.
Both down here in Key West, and you bought Baby's Coffee with your wife, Carnella, and give us a little background of, what brought you down here and how the coffee shop ended up as kind of your entrepreneur path to add on to what you're doing in the real estate business.
So I'd like to tell you a little bit about how I met Jamie, because it's a funny story, but this is the funny part. My sister had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and my son, who was 5 at the time, and I said, look, if Mimi loses her hair, we're going to shave our heads. And so he said, okay, let's do that. So long story short, within a week of first chemo, she unfortunately lost her hair. So we go in my bedroom and I shave my head. I mean, like shave with a razor. And never forget, my son looks up at me and I go, it's your turn. He goes, I'm not doing that. He looks at my head. I looked very, very scary. At 290 pounds at the time and bald and a full beard.
I was 290, but let's keep going.
330, whatever it was. Anyway, so then Jamie calls me like the next day and wants to meet me. And I said, well, I'm going to be in Orlando. He goes, well, I'm going to be in Orlando. So we met for dinner at Rachel's.
Yep.
Okay. And so my first meeting with Jamie, I have a completely shaved head and we're meeting at a strip club. So that's how our relationship started.
Just for the record, it's a strip club with a really nice
fine
steakhouse.
Dining. Yes. It has a fine dining component to it. Yes, it does. So anyway, we met and obviously it went very, very well beside my appearance. And then we both realized how much we had in common and we've been very good friends ever since. So it's been a kind of a weird venture to think about, and there's more connections. I moved to Key West, and I'll get into that later, but I bought Jamie's house. So I actually moved into Jamie's house and when he sold it. And so there's been a lot of interconnections between that and him ended up buying the marina that I go keep my boat at. And so I just can't avoid him.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I keep trying to shake him.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to, really laying that foundation. And I think Craigslist was just...
It was great, yes.
It's one of those websites that really can connect people to long-lasting relationships.
And the reality is, like, business has a way of cross-pollinating paths over the decades and so forth. And so it's just interesting, all of us sitting here in Key West today, your guys' backstory, and then even now these cross-pollination of businesses today. And so obviously, our viewers understand we've gotten into the coffee business recently. So we thought of no better way than to come talk to this guy who's been in the grind and picked up this amazing spot down here. I mean, if you haven't been to Key West, you got to make sure that when you're on US 1 coming in, you stop at Baby's Coffee.
Yeah.
And then
mile marker 15.
At mile marker 15. And then at the same thing, kind of what you're supposed to do is on the way out, you stop at Baby's Coffee. That's right.
Yes, sir. So we moved from Key West, Jamie's old house, and bought a house a little bit up the Keys right here. And this is a neighborhood called Bay Point. And we want to be on open water. So we bought a house here, and Baby's was the entrance to the neighborhood. And it's been here for over 35 years and an established Key West landmark. And so we were customers. And then we saw that it had gone up for sale, and it had been for sale for, 6 months. And I was telling my wife, if it was a great deal, someone would have bought it already. But until I tried to find out all the due diligence information and realized that the gentleman who sold it was somewhat of a very eccentric guy, very smart guy. And getting information from him was very, very difficult. You just had to go through email through his attorney, and then they had to approve it. I could see where a lot of people would probably just not go through that process.
Right. Then
once you got the due diligence information, you realize the numbers look pretty good. He said, I'm not giving you any of the the recipes or any of the actual stuff that's important till after closing. And he was asking $2.5 million. Well, it's $3.5 million at the time with the lots next door. So long story short, we kind of stuck our neck out and thought it's probably going to be worth it, looking at the numbers, to take that risk. And we were glad we did. We ended up closing on it and then buying the lots next door.
And that was in 2022
this
or
was
three?
We closed February 1st of 2024.
Okay.
So we've owned it for a year and a half now. And it was the best decision we ever made. Neither one of us were ever in the coffee business. I wasn't even a big coffee drinker. I don't think my wife had ever had a cup of coffee. But we're big Key West fans and fans of, historic spots in Key West. And one of the things we didn't want to see, because this is one of the few sites that could be zoned in like a Wawa, and that's who actually was looking at it. Mm-hmm. And the thought of them tearing down a Key West landmark and turning it into a Wawa was not something I wanted to see happen.
Yeah, and you knew that, hey, if I can get in here with your business background and experience, we can keep this thing alive. We can make this thing towards a good thing for our family.
We actually saw a lot of meat on the bone. So we noticed Gary, who was wanting to get out. He'd been doing this for 40 something years, between here and New Orleans. But there was a lot of stuff. Gary was not tech savvy from a standpoint of website information, although he was extremely ahead of the curve when it comes to URLs and things like that. You'd be stunned at the stuff he did when the internet opened up that's benefiting us today.
Yeah.
But he was not doing a lot online. Matter of fact, he had 40,000 people in a database that had bought coffee online from him. And Gary had never sent a single email out.
Wow.
I mean, not a Christmas email, not a thank you, not a, nothing.
Yeah. So did you inherit that list as well?
We inherited that list as well, obviously. And I'll never forget, we had been open for about 2 months, and we decided to send the first email out, and it was going to be an email about free shipping.
Yeah.
And so we did it to a third of the database. Gary was selling about $500, $800 a day online of coffee beans without trying.
Right.
We sold 22,000 in about 5 hours.
Wow.
And I had to drive to Fort Lauderdale and get beans because we had run out. So we realized then that we had to approach this differently because we weren't set up to do that kind of volume on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So we literally didn't send another email out for 3 months.
While you put those systems in place.
some of the systems in place to even go to the next step.
Right.
And now we do, basically probably say one email every 2 months. And we do, it's, a $10,000 or $15,000 shot in the arm every time we do it. And we haven't reached all the 40,000 people yet. So, that and keeping coffee on the shelves. So we have three main components to this business. We have the liquid, which is the cold brew and the coffee and things like that. We have beans by the pound.
Yep.
And then we have a food component. And so, and then the online business is coffee by the pound on a different kind of scale. So, all of those needed to be massaged. But for me, the biggest thing was keeping the staff, because Gary had done a great job of having the same people here. And when you're in the coffee business, this is what a lot of people, and I think Starbucks screws up. People get relationships with these people. They come in every single day.
That's right.
No one goes to an Outback every day.
Yeah.
But people go to their coffee shop literally every day.
Yep.
So if they can go in and be recognized, identified, and then taken care of like they come in every day,
yeah,
it makes the whole thing different. You can have a bad day as a coffee guy. You can make a bad cup of coffee.
Yep. If
Sally, the gay lady's working at the counter, knows Mary who's buying the coffee, she's not going to be upset about that.
Yeah.
But if I walk in, it's a generic person, it's a bad cup of coffee, they're going to go bitch and moan and complain as they should.
Yeah.
Relationships are everything in this business. And if you don't treat your employees well, you're going to be out of business.
Well, and that's one of the things we've been talking about on this podcast is, starting new businesses. A lot of the national companies are moving away from just the relational aspect of it that connects people. So you can have a great product, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's even like Beach Weekend Coffee in Fort Walton. The amount of repeat customers, just because of how the baristas are connecting with the people that are coming in. That's kind of what we've been talking about. It's like bringing back the old school coffee shop. But mostly what that means is we're just bringing back the relationships in the coffee business that I think was an awesome thing, 10, 20, 30 years ago that has been lost right now. And you guys are doing a fantastic job of that.
Well, there's rightfully so. People are focusing on a lot of digital, a lot of media, a lot of things like that. But what is lost right now is the personal connection and the touch with people. And people crave that. And we're human beings, and people crave that human interaction.
Yeah.
And coffee shops and places like that, small diners and things like that, where people go on a regular basis, I think can feed that where they're lacking somewhere else, where people aren't getting that. We have people who've met and spoke for 2 years and never even met each other face to face. My wife does Zoom calls with teams in the Ukraine and India. She's 6-year relationships with people that she's never laid eyes on.
Yeah.
And so when you have a business where you actually have that connection and you're handing somebody a cup of coffee and your hands touch and you'll have that connection, it means a lot when it's the same person.
Yeah.
So if you don't focus on keeping those employees happy and making sure they're paid well and treated well, you're not going to succeed in this business, period.
Let's talk a little bit about, bringing Baby's Coffee into the entrepreneurial mix that we've talked about on the podcast. When you and Carnella were, like you said, you were very limited on the due diligence until after close or during close. And, day one, you close on this coffee. Day one, are you open?
We had 30 days in advance, basically, to soft take over the store.
Okay.
What I mean by that is, although we didn't, the roasting room was separate. Gary did not let any employee. We had people who had been here 5 years, had never stepped foot in that doorway.
Okay.
They weren't allowed in here. No one was allowed to do anything. Gary and his wife were the only 2 people who had ever stepped foot in this room, period. So we had to work around Gary's, way of doing things for 30 days, but we were kind of slowly integrating ourselves into why. It basically was an observation phase for us.
Right.
And so first thing we did is introduce ourselves to the girls and ask them, what do you need? What's the biggest thing we can do to help you guys? And they said, well, there's only 2 of us here and we need a prep person because the line's getting long and people are getting frustrated because I take the order. The barista goes and makes a coffee, and then I have to go actually put the bagels in the oven. I have to put the sandwich together, and then I come by. The time I've done that, there's 5 other people in line.
Yeah.
So we immediately solved that problem. So we decided that we were going to invest into the business and start off with investment in employees, and that was the first thing we did. To make the business, better, so to speak, was invest in them and make it a little bit easier for the customers to come in and out.
Yeah, and then we got a lot of other stuff to talk about. We've got, transferring the phone numbers, website, logistics on, hey, where do I set the relationship up to get the imported beans, right? How to run the roaster. And, from a priority standpoint, going through that transitional phase, I'm sure priority 1 is keep it moving, keep it operational. And then, what priorities or what timeline did you set up for? Are we going to reinvent the logo? Are we going to change the website? Is there some other technology we can integrate maybe in the point of sale system and integrating into online orders and the shipping? What was your focus, moving forward from day one, keeping the coffee shop open to, step 2, maybe starting to transition the website, capitalize on the customer list and really taking that business that you bought and scaling it to where you are now?
Well, the first thing we wanted to do was we didn't want to change anything right off the bat until we knew the dog caught the car, basically.
Yeah.
And so once the dog caught the car, and we go, okay, let's spend the first month of us owning it. We've closed. Gary's out of the picture, other than training us on the roasting side. How do we do this? And the first thing was, okay, let's not touch anything until we see what we've got.
Yeah.
So once we figure that out, we said, okay, where are some things that we can do, the low hanging fruit that can be done. And the low hanging fruit was small things like changing shelves and getting, keeping more stuff in stock. The biggest thing was keeping coffee by the pound in the store. So Gary had gotten to the point where he was just roasting enough for the store to serve coffee, but he wasn't putting coffee by the pound. Shockingly enough, we started keeping the shelves stocked, and we raised the daily revenue by $1,500. So just a day, just by having coffee by the pound back on the shelf. And people would come in, oh my God, you got coffee. And they initially were starting to buy, 5-10 bags because they thought it was a scarce thing that wasn't going to happen. But now we keep them regularly shelved.
Yeah.
So those are the low hanging fruit. And then you had to look at the bigger picture, which was, okay, where do we need to invest money? And it needed to be in the building itself. Building hadn't been touched in a long time. A lot of spalling. Windows were shut down still from Irma. So we redid the front completely, which is a pretty big undertaking. Never closed down one time. We made the entrance in this roasting room, had a curtain and a false wall, and took about 3.5 months, but got it done. And that single change, I think, probably increased our business by 25% since last year, because we look open where before we look closed. Logo wise, it's funny you mentioned that, Jamie, because I was not a fan of the I when I bought the business. Mm-hmm. But we learned very quickly from the customers, don't change anything. It's babies for a reason, and we love the logo. And I've learned that anytime that you have something that is up for discussion and people bring up all the time, which people bring up the logo all the time, good or bad, they're talking about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it was just a normal logo and it was like, oh, it's a great logo, but no one's talking about it, that's not a good logo.
Yeah.
And so people love it. I always thought I would put some red lines in there so it looked like people were sleepy in the eye. I thought about changing it. I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
And the story behind it is Gary's wife, Olga, who was a very famous artist in New York, who used to have her own gallery in New York, woke up in the middle of the night and drew that, almost like Jerry Seinfeld with a joke on this in the middle of the night, and drew that on a napkin, and it became the baby's logo.
Yeah.
So, and she's got shirts, and she's got some really cool paintings that we're going to put when you do some expansion. We're going to, show all of her art, but that baby's logo is going to stay that way forever. They would run me out of Key West if I changed.
Is there any background to the I in baby's coffee, or was just an image that she just felt was right for the product?
They did not have. Baby started as Baby's Place.
Okay.
On Duval Street. And then they changed it to Baby's Coffee because people, one thing about coffee shops to me is, Baby's Coffee is coffee, right? You have a lot of places that are called something,
right?
This and that. And you have to actually go, what is that place, and go in it. There's no discrepancy. When it was Baby's Place, he served barbecue, he served a bunch of other stuff. It was kind of nondescript.
Right.
Baby's Coffee and the logo will never change because whether it makes sense, doesn't make sense, it's something that everybody who comes in here asks you about the eye.
Yeah.
Tell me the story about the eye, because nobody knows.
Yeah.
And like I said, if I put a picture of a coffee cup with, steam coming out of it, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Was the wife's nickname Babies? Is there really no background to it?
Literally, she had a dream, and the eye was the dream. She woke up and thought, I really like that picture, and that's going to be Baby's Coffee. I've always assumed it looks like a wide awake eye, and the coffee wakes you up. That's before I bought Baby's, I assumed it had to do with, it wakes you up in the morning. And
the neat thing about that is, and Joe, you probably haven't listened. We did a podcast up in Atlanta with Jose, a big design firm, and we really talked 20 minutes on if you were going to do this from scratch, you and most of us, in the design and branding business probably would not have ended up on that.
No,
and that's what's so neat about this is that what it's been able to do backwards to what we've talked about in teaching.
It just means all of us in the design branding industry, there's no for sure way that something's going to be successful. No. Sometimes things just click, and surrounding, this establishment here in Key West, there's an iconic piece to it that circumvents and it outweighs anything that you can do that we might sit here in a focus group and try and say, hey, we can make it better. But really, the proof's in the pudding. It's in the sales. It's in the people that come back year after year.
And honestly, when people see this eye, and by the way, Gary was, I don't want to say a litigious guy. He was a very protective guy. Gary won lawsuits against Starbucks, Johnson & Johnson. He won some big lawsuits against some big companies over protection of his Havanas. Actually, the Hemingway family, we have a roast called Hemingway, Hair of the Dog. He won a lawsuit. They sued him over that name. So we've been Gary's been very protective. We have Killer Joe Coffee. We've had it for 35 years. And we're in the middle of a lawsuit right now with the Killer Joe Coffee Company in Dallas, who just opened up a year ago and are, infringing on our trademark. And that I right there is a trademark thing that we know when people see that. Obviously it's a regional thing with the I. They know it's Baby's Coffee. It's no mistaking about it. And so we want that. We like it. And like I said, it'll never change. And whatever dream and whatever the background was, I would probably run out of town if I tried to change it.
Yeah, and like you said, you couldn't pay for the value of that brand recognition. I mean, that's just a testament to what you've done and built on it. What is it, Gary?
Gary.
What Gary's done, and it's just neat to see something like that against the norm of trying to create a logo or a brand that directly tells the story of the product. And it's neat to see this, how recognizable it is because the product was so good.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned the product, because I have to give Gary credit. People don't realize, and I didn't realize this till we went to the big coffee show in Houston back in March or April. And Gary's reputation in the coffee industry was almost a savant type. There were people coming up to Gary asking him about roasting decaf and how he roasts. Gary's roasting ability is probably one of the best, I would say, in the country. He roasts with these older roasters, not the new technology where people just putting in a digital program and sending it off and then showing up 20 minutes later. He's smelling the coffee, he's checking the beans, he's checking the temperature. And so he got to teach my son and I the way he does it. And I realized once he taught us that, why he wasn't telling me that information beforehand. But he is a master and a savant at that. And the reason Baby's Coffee's always tasted better than the guy next door is we're buying really high-end beans and we're roasting it. We're not going to buying generic stuff that some of the local places are doing. We know where our coffee's been. We know it's high mountain. We know it doesn't have a lot of pesticides on it, if any. We know that it's graded at an 82 grade or higher. And then we roast it as best we can to that bean. And people don't realize it's an organic product. So I'm getting beans in twice a week. I look at the beans from Brazil or from Colombia, and I have a sample pack of each one of them. Sometimes they're smaller because they had to be the storm and they had to pick them. The bean that's smaller needs to be roasted a little different than the bean that's a little bit bigger. So most companies don't give a shit about that.
They just dump them all in.
Dumping them all, and they write, medium roast on their button, and it roasts to medium. If you want consistency, you have to pay attention to those details. And I will tell you this, we have guys who've come here for 35 years. There are days when we're roasting coffee and we realize we left that coffee in 10 seconds longer than it should have.
Right.
I'll be called out on it.
Yeah.
Okay. The guys who are drinking black coffee that we're selling for $1.50 and nobody else is doing that. We'll call you and go, something a little different about it. Not bad, just it's a little different. They know you're not pulling the strings of cold brew and you got all the crap in it and everything else. But the coffee guys, they're going to call you out on it.
Man, that's fantastic. I mean, that's something that, you guys have obviously worked really hard to achieve that goal in the coffee space. And I think it's a great testament to how much you care and how much, labor and love and investment that you have in producing that good product. And I think for the people listening in business is to be successful, to have a great logo, to have a great company. If you're not putting, everything you've got in that coffee or in that product, that, it's going to be hard to be successful. You can tell a great story. You can spend all the money on social media. You can check all the boxes. But at the end of the day, making sure your product is at a level where you're happy with it and the customers is really a testament to why we're here.
Yeah, and the story that goes along with Baby's Coffee is the thing. It's the thing that make people want to continue to come back, because that story is what drives them to Key West. This is a unique place. We've talked about this a lot. Like there's just something about Key West, right?
Yes, and funny because when I lived in Destin, I was teaching people real estate. I still do sales training. I tell people when they're in places like Key West or Destin or the Bahamas, the cycle is this: you come down here and you're here for a week or two, and you fall in love with it. And everybody picks up the real estate guide, or they get online and they start searching stuff. And the dream is to, man, I'd love to live here. If I'm vacationing here and I'm on my second trip down here, it's because I love to live down here. And so you start looking at the real estate. Let's say you buy something. and you go back home, what's the first thing happens when you get home? You open up your mail, you have bills, life hits you in the ass, and you go, you know what? I know I went to contract on that house, but I'm gonna have to call them and tell them I'm not gonna do it. So as a salesperson, I'm getting in where this ties into coffee. As a salesperson, when you come down here and I go under contract, if you don't send them pictures and memories and keep them engaged and focused on why they bought in the first place, that emotional attachment to that area,
Right.
you're gonna lose them.
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't a first time home buyer. This isn't somebody who's gonna live in it. This is kind of emotional purchase. When people come down here and they buy coffee and they taste it, what I'm giving them a reminder of that vacation every single day in a cup.
That's right.
So when they come here, a lot of times I will give people a sample pack of coffee and let them take it home.
Yep.
And you'd be amazed at how many people, they love our coffee, don't get me wrong, but it's also the memory of
right.
me taking the kids down here. I remember stopping at Babies, and every morning that logo
Yep.
is causing them to be attached to the family vacation, the family memory, the thought and happy, stuff that you did there. And to me,
Those are the intangibles.
the intangibles
Right.
that you can't touch. And so for me knowing that I'm giving somebody a flashback to a wonderful time they had in their life every time they open up a coffee maker and start bag of coffee, it makes me feel good.
Well, and that's the thing that a national company like Starbucks just can't do.
No.
Can't achieve that. There's no emotional tie because I can go to one of those on every single corner on any city in America. And so again, you're bringing something to people, which then I'm sure helps perpetuate online sales as well, right?
It absolutely does. And to your point with the Starbucks is, we've talked about, expanding and how we would go about doing that with Babies, because we understand our connection to the keys and we understand our history.
Yep.
And I think the way to expand is to basically take the Babies part that works, which is really good coffee, roasted really well, the logo, that kind of thing, but go to communities that need a local coffee shop. Starbucks makes a mistake, in my opinion, by having this generic, very cold feeling in every single Starbucks. There's nothing about it that says you're in Orlando, that says you're in, Destin, that says you're anywhere. If I opened up coffee shops, which I plan on doing, we're going to go to, let's say, St. Augustine.
Yeah.
I'm going to let St. Augustine dictate how that coffee shop feels.
That's right.
Okay. I'm going to give them the brand. I'm going to give them the really good coffee, but we're going to set this up so it's literally authentic to St. Augustine.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when the first word you said was community.
Yeah.
Was really going back to kind of what we talked about in the beginning, was a community coffee shop that I think the Seven Brew, Dutch Brothers, all they're looking to do is get coffee out the door.
Yep.
It's hot. It's a commodity product where they're looking to, anytime they can shave $1 off a bag of coffee, they're shaving it, they're serving it hot, not knocking their product, but it's not what we're doing here today.
Correct.
And which that's fine, because there's the market for people that just want coffee and they want to go. But I think what that's doing is it's opening back up the original coffee shop.
Yes.
And
I
there's
think-
a huge market for that.
Yes.
And I think there's a one shop and company, I think it's a franchise model that we've looked at I think they've touched on it. It's Foxtail.
Yep. Very familiar with Foxtail.
They were one of the first franchises, I think, to kind of capitalize on that neighborhood market. I don't think they've done I don't want to sit here and knock what they've done, because they do have a great product. But I think what you're talking about, and it's similar to what we have talked about, is building that community.
Well, what none of them are doing, Jamie, the Foxtail's done a decent job. Lucky Goat's done a decent job too. What they haven't done is go to that area and go, what do these people want to see?
That's right.
It doesn't need to look like every other Foxtail.
That's right.
The problem I have with
Our brand is not the most important thing.
well, not only that, our brand is not being cookie cutter.
Yeah.
That is the brand. The brand is not being cookie cutter. The logo and the coffee taste should be the only cookie cutter part of that.
Yeah.
I want local people. I want people who are looking for a career, who I can, as long as I can, either one or two things, somebody I can help, find what their life's dreams are and accomplish those through us being one of the, paths they take during that journey.
And that's really counseled by Joe, right?
It's counseled by Joe.
Yeah, that's his hourly appointment.
Here's all the things that I did wrong. Don't
That's
do
right.
them. But I do think that if I go into other markets, and we will, it's going to be after investigating what they need and then adapting to that market.
Yeah.
And that means the look of the place, the feel of the place, the hours of operation. We want it to be attuned to what that neighborhood needs, and then hire local people, build the relationships, and retain your staff.
And this right here, what we're talking about, like regardless of what business you're in, you may not even be in the coffee business, but this right here is what goes back to community relationships. So, a lot of times we get so heavily invested into our business or our product that we get tunnel vision of what are the actual needs of the community that we're going to serve.
Well, and to your point, we have Sugarloaf School up the road. We do a lot of stuff for Sugarloaf. I mean, a ton of stuff. Monetary.
And for people
donated.
listening, that's just another island up the chain.
Yeah, it's just another island of the chain.
It's not a bakery item
no,
on the shelf.
No, Sugarloaf is one of the keys. But we invest in the community here in a large degree. PBA, you name it. We had RSPCA out here yesterday. We spend a lot of money investing in the community. And what large chains are screwing up is not giving the chains the ability to make those decisions at that level. So, we would want whatever coffee shop we grow into to absorb into that community.
Yeah.
And they don't need to call and make any decisions. It's something they're allowed to do on their own and really become their coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to realize when people come to you, and like I said, this difference in us and almost any other business is people will come here every single day. They come to get coffee. It's a routine, and they come every day and they get coffee. And if you can make that experience feel like another extension of their house when they left, you're going to be successful.
Let's jump into a little bit more about the business side. So, taking over this, did you guys revamp the website? Do you have an app? Are we doing online orders, DoorDash? I mean, what other parts of the business that you think you can explore and get your product to obviously, we're all in the business world. We do want to improve the business. We do want to grow revenue. We do want to expand the product. What items are you working on or have worked on that have helped get the product out there and grow what Gary started?
Well, the first thing we did, like I told you, we were unconscious incompetent when he bought it, so we didn't know what we had. Dog caught in the car, we figured it out. Once we got through that phase, we said, okay, where can we increase our revenue? The low-hanging fruit was putting more coffee on the shelves and obviously sending some emails out, and that proved to be very successful. After that, we started getting into expanding the roasting, expanding some blends, getting some additional coffees that Gary was pretty much focused on two different regions for coffee, which is Brazil and Colombia, with some Jamaican. We expanded that greatly into some other areas, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Kenya, and we kind of expanded that, which allows us to send an email out with a purpose.
Right.
You've been buying X, Y, and Z. We have something else you can try, buy one, get one free, whatever. It gives us a legitimate reason to reach out to people. We also expanded the menu a little bit, added some indoor seating, which we're going to add some additional indoor seating as well. Upgrade a lot of the appliances, a lot of investment. We've taken no money out of this in the first 18 months. And then we opened up a food truck. So Gary had bought a food truck for COVID, never used it. Bay Point Market, which was 2 doors down, had gone out of business, and they had a sandwich shop and a grill. They went out of business and said 3 employees that were all one family that needed a job. And I had a food truck that was sitting there, and I was like, you know what, let's try it. And it has turned out to be very successful. We're probably doing, $1,000 a day. My costs are about $450. And so if we do $1,000 a day, I'm pretty happy with it. And they all have jobs and they're happy. And I let them run. I don't know anything about the food truck other than the burgers are good and they've gotten all 5-star reviews. So we're thrilled to death about that.
Tell us the name so people listening can swing by and check
Baby's
it out.
Grill.
Baby's
and it's
Grill,
in the parking lot. It's got its own little section. Soon to be within the next month, you'll be able to grab something to eat inside once we get our bay cleaned up and have some more indoor seating. And we're tweaking the hours. So one of the things you asked when we opened up, we were open from 6:30 to 4. We moved it from 6 to 5, and we're looking at expanding to possibly to 7. And the reason for that is, we're a unique place. We're the only place you can go and you can buy a cup of coffee, a steak.
Well, let's talk about steaks because I think the first few times that we'd meet and go to lunch, it'd be 11:30. Joe liked to go eat, and we sit down at whatever restaurant. He goes, "Yeah, I'll take the T-bone steak." And looking at Joe, it's
we usually do that at dinner.
He's being so reserved. Normally if it was him by himself, I think he'd order 2 or 3 of them. So I mean, it was nice to see him be a little humble in his lunch ordering.
I all did that for you, Jamie. But no, it's funny because Gary, because of our location, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. We're 5 miles from Key West, the very tip of Key West or eastern section of Key West, and probably another 5 miles the other direction, maybe even more, to anything up there. So we have a good number of residents that live close to us. So for us to have some other items is huge. So we're also somewhat of a small grocery store. That's changed a little bit since Sugar Shark opened up next door, and we've wanted to accommodate them. So we've, given them the ice cream and some of the stuff that we were doing before, just to help them out. And they're good business for us too.
But again, that's how expanding the business hours is going to be a profitable thing, because there's really not a lot of other places to go.
There's nowhere to go for coffee after 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so that's been huge for us. And quite frankly, coffee's, what used to be a morning item is now pretty much a 24/7 item. So with the cold brews and all the other stuff that people are doing in coffee, it's huge, and we're still learning the business, guys. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous, but I think the advice I would give somebody is don't be afraid to try something just because you're not good at it.
Yeah.
I'm a business person. I've been successful dealing with employees and knowing how to handle that. And I think that aspect, first of all, if you don't know how to deal with people, you don't have relationship ability, and you don't treat people fairly, I don't care what you do, you're not going to be successful.
That's right.
But you can take that and use that as a base to be successful in anything. You can learn the rest of it.
Yeah.
And so, and that's kind of how we've taken this. We leaned a lot on the staff at the beginning because they knew more than we did. And so, and we're still learning, and we're not afraid to say we don't know something. We'll tell people when we don't know. When I'm dealing with coffee beans and things like that, we're still learning, and we have a lot to learn. And Gary did this for 35 years.
What do you think your biggest challenge so far is, whether it was financing, financial, trying to come up with the resources to do a certain thing that you want to do, or staffing? What's been your biggest challenge you had to overcome in the first 16, 18 months?
The biggest problem with us is expansion.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we could scale this business.
And you're talking about the physical plant for expansion, or just expanding the brand?
Well, where the money for us, the easy money for us is on the by the pound over through the mail.
Okay.
So that the roasting the coffee beans and selling it online is where we know we can send one email out and make X amount of dollars.
Right.
And that's without doing any other type of advertising. There's no Google ads, there's no Facebook, there's
because
nothing.
of that base that you've already accumulated.
Because of the base we accumulated, and the fact that we're in Key West, and the fact that we have such a good number of reviews that people look at and go, wow, this must be good.
Yeah.
I have one roaster that's up and operational. So we're limited to that. For us to expand the way I want to expand, I probably need about 2,500 square feet of warehouse space. Put 3 roasters in, 3 baggings, the grinders. We have the equipment. We just need them. I have 4 roasters. I just have one hooked up. The biggest problem with that is the county. The biggest problem with that is trying to get something done. I mean, I'm 3 years out. If I had everything I wanted to do in writing, it would be 3 years before I probably was in the building. So it's the county. It's having the struggles of building, time frame, cost of building down here. And the argument is, well, do I just go to Miami, buy a warehouse for $400,000 that's 4,000 square feet?
Yeah.
If I'm honest with people and I'm roasting out of Miami, am I losing some panache?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest problem, is making that decision.
Yeah.
And that could be a make or break too, with an investment like that. And then people don't want it because the story's got a hole in it now, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And I got to be the guy. What in the hell is panache? That's a great word. I mean, I would nod my head and be like, absolutely, we need the panache.
It's panache. It's style, basically. It's what I think it is. I could be wrong, but
I like it. I mean, I could really get behind that.
If it's something different, drop that in the comment and let us know.
Yes, please.
So back to when you bought this place, you talked about one of the things that you've got a good track record with is working with employees. And again, entrepreneurs that are listening to this is something that all of us have to deal with. Did you have any pushback from the employees that, like you said, they knew more than you did? Or were you able to nurture that relationship, cast the vision of what this is going to be, and kind of continue on without any hiccups?
Well, I don't want to sound too calculating, because it can come across the wrong way. So I don't mean it to be that way. But we knew we were looking at this for 6 months before we went under contract. We were customers here.
Yeah.
So to say that I was not intentionally nice, I'm always nice, but I had intentions behind my actions when I came in here, knowing I may buy it.
Yeah.
So that went 2 ways. One, I was actually somewhat interviewing the girls every time I'd order coffee. But I also wanted to be genuine to them and build relationships with them as best I could as a customer.
Right.
So when, I'll never forget, Christina, who's now our manager, was probably 2 weeks before we went under contract. I ordered my coffee and I'm waiting for it. And she looks at me and she goes, "You're buying babies, aren't you?" I said, what are you talking about? She goes, "I got a feeling you're buying babies." And I said, "Why are you? What would you?" I mean, I'm just laughing. My face is red. I can't hide it.
Saying everything.
And I said, "No." I said, I'm not buying babies. And so when we did, and we announced, she goes, I knew you were buying babies." And so it was one of those things that we had established some rapport.
Right.
They were happy we were buying it, not because they didn't like Gary. They were happy because they knew Gary was selling it to somebody.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were selling it to somebody they knew made them feel good.
Yeah.
We lived in the neighborhood. We were locals. So that was we jumped the first hurdle without having to jump the first hurdle.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a huge one.
Yeah, huge one.
And obviously, walking around here, meeting you and seeing your employees, obviously you're treating them well. And there's the benefit that comes from just taking care of people, which that's the foundation of business.
And the key to that, in my opinion, and a lot of people argue with this, is most people start a company, they want to come and lay the groundwork and they want to do, here's how we do things. And, we came in with, first thing is, what do we need to do to retain you guys?
Yeah.
What are you missing? And that's
what
the first
can we
thing
do to help your job make it better for you?
And that's the first thing we did. Before we spent a dime, first thing we did was hire prep people and do exactly what they asked us to do.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then when you start asking of them, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and they're buying into the product. They're buying into the belief and the
they're buying into the process. They're buying into the
Right.
process. And that made a big difference.
Well, and our employees, they want to win personally, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, they can get behind a vision that helps them win personally. And so your investment into them, obviously it helps then make babies grow, but it helps them grow as well. It makes their families better.
Well, in communication with your staff, finding out we have high school kids who we know are leaving in a year. They're prep people. We don't put them at baristas if they're not going to be here long term. But we have a discussion with every single employee to find out what their goals are. Is this a transitional job for you? Is this something you could see yourself doing? Would you want to move into management? And I have all those discussions with all these people, so I know, because we're going to hire from within.
Right.
We don't interview. We don't advertise for employees. It's all word of mouth.
Yeah.
And they have to interview with the current staff before we hire them.
Right.
And so
because they're the ones that know.
And then they're the ones that have to work with them.
Yeah.
And so we're very, very cautious about that. And you're not going to see babies hiring in the Facebook post or, on Indeed. We're not going to do. And I'd say if we moved and opened something up in St. Augustine, we might do something different to start off.
Right.
But once we have a core group of people, we're hiring from within, friends and family of people who are here, or customers that come in. We've hired some customers, but people who, understand what babies is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great testament to you and Carnella that the employees are buying in, and people listening. Employees are always a challenge, and you add the layer of being in the keys as an additional roadblock of really limiting your reach to be able to find good people. So being able to find good people, obviously you've done it, and be able to retain them is a testament to buying into the vision, buying into the product, and it just makes all the difference in the world to be able to promote your brand when you're not here.
Well, and let me inject some into that. I will tell anybody who's starting a business, if you want to cut cost, that's fine. Do not do it with your staff. The cost that I'm spending to keep and retain my people is probably $3 to $4 more per hour than any other place in town. That is much cheaper than having turnover.
Yeah.
Having happy people who've been here a long time is, the most valuable thing you can do in a business is keep happy, satisfied people who aren't trying to figure out a way to feed their family, because you don't have turnover. I guarantee you.
And you have less headaches.
Not only that, less training, but the people don't ever calculate how much that turnover costs, because it's something that's hard to put a number to. But I assure you, whatever I'm paying more than anybody else is less than they're netting from having turnover.
Yeah, and that's well said. And I think the other piece that you're missing there is happy people, happy employees promote your brand, and your product is good and consistent.
Yes.
You're not having somebody that's upset and they're not happy being here, because that'll deliver into the barista making the coffee and to the experience walking in the door.
Well, in training them to, and I didn't have to do this because they all know it. We don't. If someone isn't happy, they got something that had an extra squirt of this or too much of that. we don't question it. I mean, it's just, sure, let me get you another one.
Absolutely.
I mean, the thought of us arguing with somebody, or we just want you to be happy, and it is what it is. And so we do our best to make sure that everybody leaves here happy. We give them the opening. We tell, if you don't like it, let us know.
Yeah.
We also tell people, if we have new baristas, if we have new baristas, we've got a new barista on here, if something's wrong, let us know. And it's just, we just don't argue with people. We want people to be happy, and they are typically.
And that's the fundamentals of success in any business, right? It is just making sure the employees are an extension of you and Carnella, and also the brand.
And one last thing too, I will say, I was fortunate unfortunate to work for two wealthy families, to understand the family dynamic and how good or bad that can be.
Yeah.
And so I've made sure between, my son and my wife, and we're all three here, they would never have to go through some of the stuff I went through dealing with that.
Yeah.
And so they know that if they want X, Y, and Z, they go to Carnella. If they want, A, B, and C, they come to me. And they know the differences between the two.
Yeah.
And, but we make sure that there's no animosity. There's no nothing. We don't bring, any of our trash to the business. And we make it to be where they're part of the family. There's not a separation from the three people who own it that are family and the rest of the staff. It's all just one big family.
Yeah. So what do you see, 5 years down the road? I mean, there's so many stories I think that are awesome in this podcast about babies that maybe your customers didn't even know. But what do you see, 5 years down the road that you could say to your customers, hey, these are things that are coming. Stay tuned in. It doesn't even seem like you got to try too hard because everybody loves this place. I know I do. But yeah, anything before we go that you want to?
Our goals to expand. We want to get back on Key West, on Duval Street where we started. So we bought a spot down there. We have tenants in that spot. They'll be out in about 2 years, so we'll definitely be there. That's
Very
on
cool.
south part of Duval. And then we have another building we're looking at on Fleming, which is on the other side of Duval. So once we do that, then we'll start going north, Marathon. And then we're going to handpick some locations. And we know our biggest challenge is to recreate this.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a site selection it's set up that would be very similar.
Yeah, but the foundation that you've created,
never changed.
It's going to be an amazing step in that direction
We
because of
appreciate
what you've already done.
And it goes to Gary and Olga who started. I mean, they started it, and we're just trying to keep that torch alive.
And I think a lot of the importance that we haven't hit on is your customer base that's out there that's in that email catalog or some of those reoccurring customers that they get to see your face.
Yes.
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Bad thing in my case, good thing in Carnella's. But
yeah, exactly. So hopefully you guys can hop on and look at Joe.
Yeah.
Give him the thumbs up.
Just feel bad for me and buy some coffee.
Yeah, give him a heads up, give him a thumbs up, give him a hug, but buy some coffee. It's fantastic. The Keys experience, they've done a great job of really delivering that experience of Key West, of that vacation destination through their coffee. Right. And it's fantastic. The staff is great. The coffee tastes amazing. And make sure you stop in on the way in and stop in on the way out.
Or if you're not here in Key West, babiescoffee.com, right?
Babiescoffee.com. It's babies.com, yeah. Either one.
Yep.
Either one.
And just search that on Google, find it, and buy a bunch of the stuff because it's amazing. And you'll feel like you're in Key West right when the package gets to the door. So
yeah, and it's roasted within probably 3 days of when you got it.
Perfect.
Well, I think it turned out better than I thought. I thought this was going to be a roasting of Joe, but thankfully it's roasting of good coffee.
I had to keep you focused.
Yeah. So, well, thank you guys for joining us. Click subscribe and like. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and we got more good episodes to come.
Yep. Thanks for watching. See you next time.